Hello everyone. Today I'll be presenting my project analyzing anime popularity trends and how anime evolved from a niche interest into a worldwide entertainment phenomenon. Anime is a diverse style of animation originating from Japan stemming from as early as 1917. It is typically characterized by vibrant colors, dynamic characters, and fantastical themes that doesn't quite conform to any singular genre. The reason why I wanted to look into anime is because of where it lands currently within popular culture has changed dramatically over the last 2 decades worldwide. What was once viewed by many as having the stigma as being too niche or too nerdy in interest has become one of the most recognizable forms of global entertainment. This presentation analyzes the factors that influence anime popularity and audience engagement over time. For this project, I use data from sources including that collected by Google Trends and publicly available metadata through myanimelist.net using fan-made API and some data scraping. To begin, I wanted to look at what the overall public considers to be the best anime to get a foothold on what and why this media is popular and with how many people across the world. The dashboard here shows the top 10 anime based on user scores from MyAnimeList, which functions similarly to IMDb, but specifically for anime and manga being Japanese comics. Not only is it a web forum for those of similar interest to meet and converse over different topics of anime, but users can also rate different anime from a scale of 1 to 10, wherein the platform aggregates those scores into an overall public ranking. This is how we see and are able to get a general idea of what is considered the most popular by everyone involved and how many voted for each title. This data set contains over 14,000 anime titles and roughly 591.9 million user ratings. The chart highlights not only the highest rated anime, but also how many users contributed to each score. This is important because a highly rated anime with only a few thousand votes is much more different from one maintaining a high rating across hundreds of thousands or even millions of viewers. Many of the anime appearing here are either long running or critically respected series, such as Frieren, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, and Attack on Titan. These series tend to combine strong storytelling, character development, and large, sometimes obsessive communities of diehard fans. However, audience popularity and critical acclaim were not always the same thing, so next I wanted to see what critics and anime reviewers often considered the best anime. For this section, I looked at opinions and rankings from anime journalism and review platforms such as news articles and publications like Anime News Network, Crunchyroll News, which has its own streaming service, and Polygon, which is a well known site for reviews, stories, and news about anything pretty much considered nerdy. Along with published reviewers, I also need to consider the influence of well known anime YouTubers and online reviewers such as The Anime Man, Glass Reflection, and Super Eye Patch Wolf. Those names function similarly to career reviewers, but come from different points of view or aspects the community appreciates. One important distinction is that critics often focus on more heavily on storytelling quality, artistic direction, thematic depth, or innovation, while public audiences may focus more on entertainment value, mass internet hype, action, or emotional attachment to established characters. For example, critics may praise slower and more experimental anime. For example, the number one critically acclaimed anime on our list here is Steins Gate. This is a series that explores the consequences of altering time, the nature of grief, and the burden of choice. While audiences may prefer the highly accessible action oriented series, which we'll see later on while we go over a few periods in time that'll explain that further. Seeing the comparison demonstrated here between two charts demonstrates that anime popularity can be measured multiple ways, and public opinion does not always align with critical reception. To better understand anime itself, I then analyzed demographics, their meaning, and what audiences anime is primarily targeted towards. Anime demographics are broad audience categories used primarily by Japanese publishers and magazines. The largest demographic shown here in the dataset is under the kids umbrella term, which is traditionally targeted towards younger children. These series commonly focus on moral lessons, adventure, and friendship, like Doraemon, Pokemon, and Hamtaro. Other demographics including shonen anime, which is designed for teenage audiences and will have primarily longer running series, Naruto, One Piece, and Dragon Ball Z. Seinen, which targets adult men with more mature and darker themes like here, Berserk. Shoujo, which is targeted more towards teenage girls and often emphasizes relationships, emotional storytelling, like The Rose of Versailles and Sailor Moon. And Josei, aimed towards adult women about introspection and finding oneself, like Nana. The dominance of both kids and shonen anime within the dataset helps explain why action-oriented anime tend to dominate the global popularity rankings. Even if you haven't seen any of these mentioned, I'm positive that you've seen or at least heard of one of them, especially with such massive hits as Pokemon, Dragon Ball Z, and of course Sailor Moon. Here, after understanding the difference between critics and public opinion, and also who anime is made for, also wanted to examine what external factors may have contributed to anime's rise in popularity over time. The next export here explores anime trends across different years and seasons using this chart to be able to select any year and any season, many of the 4 different seasons, which operate and break the seasons up into quarterly broadcast styles. One major factor was changing public perception. Anime once carried a stronger social stigma in Western cultures and was often viewed as a niche hobby. Today, anime is far more mainstream and socially acceptable. Technology also played a very major role. In July of 2004, broadband internet officially surpassed dial up as one of the most common internet connection types in the US. Faster and more reliable internet made streaming video and online media much more accessible to a larger audience across the globe. Around the same time, several major platforms emerged, including YouTube in 2004, and later next year, or the following year, came Reddit, a massive network of thousands of online communities where people discuss, share content, and vote on their favorite topics, and then the previously mentioned My Anime List. These platforms and other forms of social media significantly increase anime exposure through the internet, with clips, memes, recommendations, fandom discussion, and building online communities. One interesting trend that we found here was in 2009, where there was a large amount of shonen anime being watched by many people. This period aligned with a time of growing popularity of online anime communities and the early rise of streaming accessibility. Here, just a couple years after the massive takeoff of Netflix's online streaming, anime consumption was increasingly shifting away from television and physical media toward online viewing and fan discussion platforms. Highly serialized, action oriented shonen anime often perform particularly well in this environment because weekly episodes encouraged ongoing online discussion and community engagement. Series such as One Piece, Naruto, and Bleach were all extremely popular during this time. If anyone else was as terminally online as I was and remembers the Pirates versus Ninjas discourse, this is actually caused by friendly debates online over whether One Piece, the pirate anime, or Naruto, the ninja anime, was the better series. Don't think there was ever a conclusion to that debate, but One Piece is still ongoing, while Naruto's successor and sequel series Boruto is just doing what it can. With that, I also looked at how broader world events may have influenced media consumption trends. Around that time in 2009, with the interest in shonen, the world was experiencing the ending effects of the Great Recession, the H1N1 swine flu pandemic, and major political unrest, like the Green Movement and election protests in several countries. During difficult periods, entertainment and escapist media often become more heavily consumed, and the study here shows similarly within the anime community. Another shift appeared around 2020 during the COVID-19 pandemic and its subsequent lockdown that lasted almost 3 years before any major lifts to restrictions set in place. But at this time before, in 2019, we did see a healthy mix of most demographics, indicating a wide variety of anime being consumed. But then when we go back here to 2020, we can see that it does change. We are seeing a huge increase in anime targeted towards older audiences, along with a larger increased search interest, which I'll show here at the end of the presentation. We see it's increased after the lockdown was officially put in place into March of that year. With people stuck indoors, And working from home, the internet was the main way to be able to interact with others. The fact that people were constantly online and connected to others helped push anime interest many times forward. Once you've watched The Office 1,000 times while it's still on Netflix, you may have gotten your interest piqued by its other suggestions on there. Or maybe you saw one too many edits or pictures of some anime character with wild and colorful hair that you might give in and want to know who that person is and what they're from. This leads into the final dashboard analyzing anime interest over time. The graph here is using data gathered from Google Trends, a resource used to gather information on subjects' gathered interest over large periods of time, and to measure relative search interest for the term anime. It's important to note Google Trends does not show exact search counts. Instead, a value of 0 to 100, with 100 representing the highest level of search interest during the selected time, and the lower values, 0, represent interest relative to that peak. We can infer from early years there was a decent amount of interest online with this general search, holding steady from 2004 to about 2012. Um, Another spike in 2012 due to another leap in technology from internet providers for the customers. This allows us to analyze how public interest changed over time and how major events may have influenced online engagement. The key takeaways from this analysis attribute themselves to several major factors that appear connected to anime's global growth. First was the rise of stronger internet infrastructure and invention of key social media platforms, which helped anime communities spread internationally. Second was the streaming era. Platforms such as Netflix, more recently Disney Plus and Apple TV, made anime far more easier to access worldwide through large streaming libraries and later being able to simulcast shows internationally. Finally, the COVID-19 pandemic likely contributed to increased streaming activity and online entertainment consumption due to people spending more time at home. Um, One important observation is that anime search interest has remained consistent and consistently higher even after the pandemic period, suggesting that anime has retained much of its expanded audience. Overall, this project demonstrated that anime's growth into a global phenomenon was influenced by a combination of audience engagements, online communities, streaming accessibility, technological advances, and major world events. While audience popularity and critical acclaim do not always align, the data clearly shows from the amount of people involved and how many were interested in searching for it online that anime has evolved far beyond a niche hobby to a mainstream global entertainment industry that is only going to continue to grow. Thank you.